Hi, everybody. I am here to give you a tutorial on how to create a high contrast vector portrait. So what you're looking at right here is something that I have worked on and I have been showing you guys. It is a high contrast vector portrait. So what I have done is I have chosen one color to work with, green, and I have gone into my color options and I have pretty much just moved it around and selected a few different shades, tints, and tones. What really kind of works is right here, you'll see I have a very, very light green. It's almost white. And then I have a little bit darker tone, another darker tone, and then I have one of my darkest tones. I actually have a fifth one in here as well. It works really well with four, but you can definitely add more. Obviously here you have them here. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you exactly how I did that and from start to finish. So we'll start by taking a look at what I started with. And what I started with was a high contrast photograph. This is the photograph that I found. I found it by literally just putting in high contrast photographs. A lot of them will come up in black and white. And I would strongly suggest that if this is your first time undertaking this, go with a black and white photograph. It'll probably be a little bit easier um, to see the different shades, tints, and tones. Now, you're going to notice in your search results, some of them are a little bit better, some of them are a little bit worse. There's a really cool bunch of high contrast photographs, like this one here. Very high contrast, very good. However, um, you'll notice that it is so high contrast. By high contrast, I mean that there's a great difference between black and white. The darkest darks of your photograph and the lightest lights. There's a huge difference here, right? This is pure white here and pure black here. And the higher the contrast, the less middle tones you get in there. So there's not a lot of gray in here, which would not make this a great candidate for the effect that we're looking at. It would make a great candidate if you were to do a two color one, which we had practiced with beforehand. But I really do strongly encourage you to find one with a little bit more gray in there. This is another one that like looks good initially. We've got some grays in here. However, the side of her face, there's so much white that we actually lose detail. And that might make it a little bit weird. So here's a good one. We've got a lot of really light lights. We've got a lot of really dark darks, but more importantly, we have a nice amount of middle tones, these like grays underneath her neck and her chin, and then along, along her mouth and her nose and her eyes. There's a lot of gray in there, and that's going to create the effect that we're really looking to create. So just as a reminder, what you're going to do is you're basically going to find a photograph that you want. I definitely recommend if you have an artist, an athlete, a movie scene, I definitely recommend taking a look through that. I mean, if you're a Kobe Bryant fan, if you're a LeBron fan, if you are a fan of a certain TV show or an actor, an actress, singer, rapper, or whatever, throw in high contrast photo and that thing that you want to look up, and you'll usually find some pretty good results. The only thing that I would caution against is anything that's anime or cartoon, because those tend to be a little bit more flat. They're not going to offer you a lot of them. I'm not going to say every single one of them, but just kind of as a blanket rule, they're not going to give you the middle tones that we're looking for. So I'm going to direct you to my week 16 page. That there will be links in that in Teams. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is most of you should have Paint 3D, but if you don't, this is a link to download it. It is free. You should not have any issues with it. If it asks you for Microsoft ID, that is going to be your school ID. So you'll just try and sign in through there. This is the area where, you know, we've talked about, you know, high contrast and vector portraits. So just keep that in mind that this resource is going to be here. I will also create links for you to submit the work in the future. So what we're going to do is I've already downloaded that image that I started with, and I'm going to show you how to pull that up. And so basically, I think at this point, we all know how to open up Paint 3D. You just kind of go into your search box and you pull it up. I'm going to share my screen in just a moment, and I'm going to show you how we pull up our project just from start to finish. So we're going to start with a new project. And as I said, you're going to save your photograph and then you're going to insert it. So you'll click on this menu button. You will go to insert and you will find it where you've saved it. So this was my high contrast photograph. I'm going to click open and it's just going to pop right there. I've got my marching ants. I could make it bigger or smaller, but that's really not going to be needed right now. So I'm just going to click outside. It automatically brings me to brushes. Here is the most important thing that you're going to need to know in order to be successful in this project. So we are using the paint bucket tool. It's right here. It says fill. It's the fill tool, the bucket tool, whatever. Many programs have something very, very similar to this. We're going to click on this. And then what you don't see right now is if I scroll down, I get this kind of, I get these other options here. I can choose how thick my color is applied. I'm going to keep my opacity here. I'm not going to touch that. We played with that earlier when we were making stickers. But the big thing that I want you to make sure that you're paying attention to here is the tolerance slider. You're going to automatically be put at 15%. I definitely recommend you go lower. And you're going to kind of toggle this up and down. You can also highlight and choose a percentage. It really is just a matter of preference at this point. We're going to pick a color. So before I started with green, I'm going to show you how to do it with like a blue color. I have one that's already pre-selected down here. And what I'm going to do is, again, you don't have to choose blue. You can choose a different blue. You can slide it up and down or whatever. What we're going to do, though, is I'm going to start with the lightest possible shade. I might even go all the way white. It's really up to you. But you want it to be like very, very light. You want this to be close to white, if not white. And you're just going to hit OK to that. And the other big thing that's going to help you out here is your zoom tool. All right, so I'm going to start by just working on her face, and I'm going to identify some of the areas on here that have the lightest values, meaning the closest to white. And what I'll do is I'm going to leave this at 15%, and I'm going to show you kind of what happens when I toggle this up and down. So if I click here with my tool, I can tell that the light source is hitting this side of her face. So I'm going to click here. And that's going to automatically fill in most of the stuff, the colors that are about the same value within like a 15% tolerance. I'm going to undo this by hitting Control Z. That's also a super big helper. I'm going to show you what happens when I bump it up to 44%. I just kind of click that. I'm going to show you what happens. It grabs so much more. And in this case, it's grabbing a bit too much. I want to get it a little bit more detailed. And again, it's a matter of preference at this point. So I'll show you what it looks like when you're down to like 7%. You get a very, very small amount. Okay. So I actually really liked it at the 15%. So I'm going to keep it at that. But and I'm just clicking in areas where I think that she's, where the light is really light. So here is an area where I'm not really thrilled with it being 15%, so I'm gonna probably lower that a bit. And there I'm only selecting certain parts. What helps this look really good, that was a little bit too much. I kind of wanted a little bit less. What also helps is you can click, I had already clicked this area here. If I want to make that a little bit more, I can double click it and you'll see that it kind of increased. I'm going to do that again just so you can see. Clicking it again will add just a little bit. And this will really help when you're like covering your picture with other colors. So I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time. I'm not going to get it to the point where it was before, but I am going to show you the ways to kind of make it look pretty realistic and get like a good result. So I'm going to lower this down to about 5 because I want her eyelid to get it, but I didn't want it to select all that. So I have my lightest value right here on her face. Clearly I would go on with her arms here and in her hair. But for the sake of demonstration and keeping this video short, I'm only gonna focus on her face for this. What I'll do is I'm gonna try and pick like a little bit darker of a value, not completely like black, but I want it to get a little bit dark. These are called midtones because they're like kind of in the middle. So I'm going to click on that. And then what really makes it look good, a good rule of thumb is to just kind of go next to your white areas, your light areas, and click there. I might want to increase my my tolerance a bit, just so that I can cover a little bit more. So let's see, I can undo. You can undo quite a bit on here. Not, I would say about 30 to like probably maybe 50 times. So just keep that in mind. The undo option is a really good way to kind of like edit on the fly. Okay, so I'm adding this next to my white areas. And that's going to give like a really cool kind of like shading element. Okay, it's really up to you how far you want that to go. I'm going to show you, I'm going to select another mid-tone. So I'm going to go a little bit darker, meaning I'm going to drag it down a little bit further. And then I'm going to click on some of these other areas too. And you'll see sometimes it doesn't necessarily meet up to, and that's where that like double click kind of helps out. So there you have that. You'll notice, so with these, there are a lot of very similar tones, and that's why it grabbed a whole bunch of that. If you don't want that effect, like I'll probably go in and make these, fill these with my next darker tone. So I'll probably just lower my tolerance to about 2 or 3%, so that it only picks up the lips on here. So, and there I have it. It's only picking up the parts that I want, okay? You might want to zoom in a little bit more, scroll down a little bit more to get in a little bit closer. That definitely helps out. And then also like clicking a couple of times really helps. So I have 3 tones right now. I could even make this one and this one a different tone. So maybe I'll want to go a little bit darker and maybe I'll click on here and make her this tone a little bit darker, this shadow area. All right. Maybe I'll make the bottom of her nose that. Again, as I said before, it really is a matter of personal preference. If you want this to be more realistic and have a little bit more detail, then the more shades and tones you'll need. I'm going to show you right here. This is actually not probably going to be as dark. Maybe I'll make her eyebrow, you know, a kind of dark one, but maybe I want to make her eyelid actually a little bit darker. But when you're coming back, because obviously we're not going to work on this for one day, your eyedropper tool is a really good tool to use. So if I'm just going to click, I want this color because I'm going to use that to kind of fill in this area around her eyelid. and I can kind of fill these in a little bit more. So the eyedropper tool is definitely very useful for when you're coming back to your work. And then what I'll probably do, you could even go straight black for some of these. So maybe I want to use complete straight black. I can maybe up this a little bit more. And then I can make her her eyelid a little bit darker. Okay. And then I can go into the much darker areas and start filling that in. So you'll notice with different areas that you click on, you might have to move that tolerance down quite a bit so that it doesn't like take over like an entire portion. Like right here, I really just wanted it to take over her neck versus, you know, the rest of it. So I'm gonna go to my eyedropper, and then I can kind of click in and make it meet the edges of my other colors. So my tips for you are play with this tolerance tool. Make sure you're on the bucket selection. Zoom in, and definitely try to go from very light values to slightly darker. I find that when you put them in that kind of order, you'll get a really nice effect. And always remember that you can grab your eyedropper tool to fill in other areas. All right, so you can come back, you can return to your work, and you can do this. Now, do you have to download an image? Absolutely not, you don't. You can take pictures on your phone, on your device, favorite photographs that you have, you can kind of use them scan them in. I have videos showing you how to do that, taking a screenshot with your laptop. And you can convert them over. I think this is a really fun, cool exercise. And these are things that like we used to need more advanced computer programs to do, but Paint 3D is something that is free. It is on most of your computers, if not like very easy to get. And you can create these really cool stylized portraits. So I hope this was helpful for you, and just bear this in mind, and good luck with your work.